Right. Yep, that's it. Sorry. Hello there. Welcome. It's Tuesday afternoon. Yep, we are live on Facebook. Where am I? Yeah, what am I doing? Right, good afternoon. Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m., just after 2 p.m. It's question time with Dil, the party wall guy. Welcome. Welcome to our weekly party wall question and time show, question and answer show. Got a really great week this week, so get ready for it. Okay, housekeeping as usual. No fire alarm scheduled. I'm going to get my screen dry in a minute. I've got the screen flowing that needs to be here. Yeah. So no fire alarm scheduled. My fire exit's over here. Can't help you with yours. Make sure you know where your fire exit is. And there's no, if it goes off, it's a real thing. So hopefully it'll be okay for half an hour. No planned interruptions. If you lose Wi-Fi connection, Zoom usually automatically disconnects. We've got a standby here in case our main one goes down. If that happens, we'll reconnect automatically after a minute or so. So hold on. Please mute and put your questions in. Raise your hands if you'd like to speak. It'll be nice to get you guys on to ask your own questions. There will be recordings. There's a little bit of a backlay. We do have a YouTube channel. Eventually they'll start going on there with all your questions and answers. Quite looking forward to having those on there. So that'll be very useful. Yep, I have written a book in the past. Here it is. Don't buy it just yet. It's being revised. There's also plans to bring out an audiobook. So let's get going. Introduction to myself. My name is Dil Gujral. I'm the Chief Surveyor at 1996 Party Wall. We're specialist party wall surveyors. If you'd like to get in touch with me, connect with me on LinkedIn or email me your questions or whatever issues you've got going on. Always happy to help. And as you probably guess, always happy to talk about party walls. We're really lucky to be sponsored by a couple of really nice organizations. I'm going to turn my magic wand on, I think. Yep, so this is going live on, sorry, I forgot where I was for a minute. This is going live on the Property Professionals Facebook channel, so we're live on there. And we're also sponsored by Wren Kitchens and Property Investor News. So a little bit from those guys later on. I'm going to see if I can get the question section up. Right, so put your questions in there if you've got questions as you think of them, and when we come to a point, we'll answer them for you, or we'll try and answer them. Okay, so audience questions, please put them in the question section. This is what your phone will probably look like if you're doing it on Android. Put it in the Q&A, and as it comes to a point, we'll go through them. You can always email or send them in via LinkedIn. But a really great question earlier on from LinkedIn. I just checked it this morning. I'll be coming to that later on. So we've been doing a little series on who, what, why, when, why do, what's the party wall process about. So this week I'm going to go through why and where. In the past weeks I've gone through who, what, and when. So let's go through why. Why undertake the party wall process? So it's a very good question. And before we do anything, we always need to understand why we're doing something. So first reason for that is it allows us to take a schedule of condition of the adjoining owner's property, which means that we've captured their house, condition of their house, state of their property before works begin. I.e., this makes it harder for them to put in false and malicious claims. And this is done to protect the building owner. So we've actually gone into properties where there's, on this occasion, there's actually a bathroom leak. I was doing the survey. I'd asked the owner's wife, if you had any leaks or anything? And she said, yep, we had a bathroom leak. It's in the passage. It's there. There's the watermarks. So I captured this on our report, schedule of condition. And obviously, when we do this, we send the report to the husband and wife. We emailed it. And the chap phones me up and he goes, there's no water damage. What are you talking about? You've got this wrong. And, you know, he said it with such certainty. I thought, maybe I mixed something up. So I looked through my files, looked at the photos, sent him the photo, and he must have been embarrassed because I didn't hear back. But it's just an illustration of what, we live in our homes on a daily basis, increasingly more and more now. So, and we become oblivious to these minor cracks and so forth. And then what happens when there's building works next door, the adjoining owners will start to look at detail of their property. Oh, what's this? What's the crack there? X, Y, Z. And it often occurs that the building owner ends up getting blamed for it. So the schedule of condition primarily protects the building owner from false and malicious claims. The other occurrences that happen, and this isn't very great, this isn't very good for the surveyors either, is projects end up being stopped midstream while they have to fix the party wall process. I've had this on a number of occasions. It actually ends up costing more money, takes longer to do than doing it in the first place. So however long you think it takes to get a party wall award cleared and party wall process cleared before the works begin, midstream is always much harder. I probably can't say it on air, so I'm not going to go wide, but on that occasion, on most occasions, if you having to do it midstream and the works are stopped, it's gonna be harder, longer, and more expensive. The primary reason for doing it is because it's your responsibility as a building owner. It's not the architects, it's not the builders, it's not anybody else. It's not your project managers. It's your responsibility as a building owner to ensure it's done. This is one of the strict liabilities under UK law. It's very much similar to health and safety, where the company can't get out of it and say, it wasn't our fault, we had X, Y, Z looking after it. It goes to the top. So as a building owner, it's your responsibility. Next item on the list, prevent legal action. So if you're not listening to the adjoining owner or you're not carrying out the party wall process, the adjoining owner finds out about it afterwards, and you don't listen and carry the process out, they can take legal action. And the issue with the legal action is it's your responsibility, so the judges aren't very favorable, and it costs more money to resolve it, and you still have to end up doing the process anyway. So try not to pick that option. Not a good option for you. And most important, last but not least, and most important of all, it is the law. So sometimes I get asked the question, it's not really the law, is it? It's a pretend law. Yes, there's an act of parliament. It was sponsored in the bill. It definitely is the law. And there's barristers and lawyers that take this very seriously. So please do it properly. Okay. Next bit of the question is where? Now, obviously it's sort of done via post and between emails. So the where question is more about which properties are involved. So just a bit of background in terms of how the process actually works. We have the building owner who starts the process. This is stage one. So this is a two-stage process. Stage one is started by the building owner. And this is a legal framework for a lot of property matters, that somebody starts a process and somebody else decides what happens next. Lease extensions is one of those things that has a similar framework. So building owner starts the process by giving a party wall notice, which is served. And stage two is decided by the adjoining owner. In stage one, that's not a party wall agreement. So we often hear the terminology where building owners will say, we sent a party wall agreement, the neighbors haven't signed it. Wrong terminology. So let's try and get our terminology correct. That's not a party wall agreement, this is a notice. The agreement comes later on. So stage two, the adjoining owner has a number of choices, and they're the ones that decide what happens in stage two. So they can ask for a schedule of condition, which again is a photographic, just a reminder, photographic survey of their property before works. It's very much like when you're renting a car, you not so many off foreign holidays at the moment, or even locally. You rent a car, they'll come around with a little tablet, boom, take pictures of the car. Our process is a little bit more involved. So it's just to prove that whether the scratches were there before or dents, or if you've done chase around the streets and caused all the scratches and, one of these action movie jobs. But anyway, getting away. So the schedule of condition is a photographic survey of a report, just like renting a car, of the neighbour's property before works begin. And this protects the building owner from false and malicious claims. The other option they have is they can ask for a party wall agreement. It's actually called a party wall award, but you call it an agreement for all intents and purposes. This is a legal document that sets out the rights and responsibilities of both parties, and also the procedures of if there's damage. So it's a dispute resolution procedure as defined by Section 10 of the Act. So moving along, let's have a look at the basic. Let's go look at the basic terms. So building owner, that's the owner of the property where the works are going to be carried out. This can be a legal entity, so it can be a limited company, it can be an individual owner, and they're the ones carrying out the works. On the other side, if you like, it's not quite the other side always, you have the adjoining owners. Now, there's multiple classes of adjoining owners. Okay, so there's multiple classes of adjoining owners. You have the freeholders. There's only one freeholder per building, but you can have two buildings involved. So, if you've got a terrace property, for example, left and right within the distances, there's two separate buildings, you've got freeholder for each. Leaseholders are more than 1 year, so short hold tenancies don't count. And there's also a sort of blind spot here between 1 and 7 years, where there's leases that don't need to be registered less than 7 years. All this information is gathered from the land registry. So when we're drafting notices, we'll pick this up from land registry search, and that'll tell us who the adjoining owners are. Where you've got leases between 1 and 7 years, this is mainly commercial properties. They don't tend to register for whatever reason, and they often get missed out. So freeholders need to be aware, and they can be a group that needs to be taken care of because they've often got self-repairing leases. There's also a group that's known as rights to receive profits. Now, this can be trusts or people who've entered into delayed completions and so forth. Actually, delayed completion comes in the next category, but there's other various categories that come under rights to receive profits. So it could be trusts, or they've got what do you call it? A lease purchase option. So they've got a right to buy the land, so therefore they're entitled to receive profits. So they may come under this section as well. And again, a rent-to-rent scenario as well. And the fourth group is where they're contracted to buy land. So you often get the case where building owner serves notices, goes around to the next doors, trying to do the neighbourly thing, saying, "Hi Joe, we're John and Joe. Hi, we're doing a loft conversion, and we'd like to give you this notice in person rather than just send it through the post." Of course, you should send it through the post as well. They're doing a neighbourly thing, and the neighbours say, "Well, we don't really care because we're selling the property and we're out of here in the next 6 weeks or 8 months, however long it takes to sell." In this scenario, the new people that have exchanged on the land have become owners, and they're contracted, so they're actually notifiable adjoining owners. So you should try and involve the new owners as soon as possible rather than just wait for last minute, because what will happen is the existing adjoining owners, once they sell, they're no longer adjoining owners. The new ones will be notifiable, and it could mean that your works are held up until that's sorted out. Excluded, just to complete the list. So council tenants are excluded, short hold tenancies are excluded, and mortgage companies are not included. So they're not notifiable owners. Okay. The one thing I do realize when I go through these questions and answers, and when I talk about party wall sections, party wall sort of process, the Act is actually written in sections, and when you pick it up, it'll talk about foundations, it'll talk about walls, owners, and so on. It doesn't actually talk about projects. And so it's a good idea to try and map sections onto types of projects. And we use residential projects because we're all familiar with these. There's so much of this stuff that goes on, especially in I'll have to say London, southeast, probably goes on in the north as well. But you know, if you're walking down the streets of the southeast of London, you'll see 3 to 4 of these going on at any time. Go and step outside your road, you'll see at least 3 skips along the road, any size of the road. So, what are residential projects? They're usually rear extensions, and these are notifiable under Section 6.1 or 6.2. That's 1 month notice period. And here there's a little table. It says these are automatic descent. Now, I'm going to discuss Section 6.1 and 6.2 further on, because we got asked a really interesting question last week. I'm going to go through it. I've got some slides for it to help it better illustrate. The other question I've actually had on LinkedIn, I just saw it this morning, is something to do with Section 1 and Section 8, access to neighbouring owners' property. So I'm going to go look at that as well. But back to the scenario, these are the main works. These are the main common works in residential setting. You've got a rear extension going on, probably got loft conversions going on. Removal of chimneys is really interesting because people just assume that it's about 3 foot of work. It's a little bit of wall sticking out of my wall. I'm just going to knock it down. Chimneys, in fact, are the second most, removing chimney breasts, second most riskiest activity. Sorry about that. Second most riskiest activity, likely to cause, second most likely to cause the most damage. And that's the activity people feel is not notifiable. So if you're doing chimneys just on their own, I don't really think they're worth doing. But if you're doing them in amongst the other types of works, please make sure they get included. And the other tip I'll give everybody here, if it's okay, is when you're doing a rear extension or a loft, put the chimneys in your notice, because what will happen is someone will have a brainwave as the project's getting along. Let's knock the chimneys out because we can get more space. So put them in there. You don't actually have to take them out if you don't want to, but it just removes the hassle of doing it afterwards. We often get calls where the owner's done a rear extension or a loft, and next, you know, once they've done that, said, might as well do the other thing or knock out the chimneys. So with our company, it's easier to put it all in one go, and the process is the same how many other things you do, at least in these 3. So it's better to include it. Now, basements. Basements are the most riskiest part of the works. Most riskiest type of project you can do on a residential work, and that's where more surveyors get involved. So basements are the riskiest, but you know, I think they create the most fun living space as well. They're notifiable under Section 6.2 usually, possibly 6.1, and probably Section 2. Again, 1 or 2 months notice, and basically all the notice and the dissent and consent is related to the section, and the type of works determine the section numbers that need to be employed. So that's why this table, and hopefully you'll find it useful. So where are we going next? Okay, so let's have a look at the process. For each separate notifiable adjoining owner, this is a process. So we could get the scenario where if there's 4 different owners, each one will do different things. So you need to understand that each adjoining owner has a different option, and it all depends on how their selection for Section 2. So we start the process. They can consent with a schedule of condition. This is just an illustration of something earlier. And once they do a schedule of condition, the condition survey is carried out, and then the works can start for that adjoining owner. So if you've only got one adjoining owner, bingo, you completed the process, off you go. The other option that the adjoining owner can do is to send to the party wall notice. And here they've got 2 options. They can either use an agreed surveyor, which is the same surveyor as yours, or they can use their own surveyor, which means you'll have 2 surveyors. Okay. Now, there's a bit of detail in there about third surveyor, but I haven't put it in there. the outcome is actually the same. There'll be a schedule of condition, a party wall award, and then once those two are completed, you can get on and do your works. There is actually a fourth option, so it's a fourth outcome, I would say, rather than an option. But this is where none of the adjoining owner, where the adjoining owner doesn't respond. Now, here's a great myth that occurs, which is that if I've given notices, they don't respond, I can get on with the works. And the primary reason for this confusion is the Party Wall Act 1996 comes from a piece of legislation called London Building Act 1939. It was mainly lifted straight over, but there were some changes in there. And one of the changes that took place was the deemed dissent, i.e. if for Section 6 and Section 2 notices, if the adjoining owner doesn't respond, it's automatically deemed to be dissent. And if they dissent, you send them a reminder letter under Section 10.4. If they don't reply to that, you must appoint a surveyor on their behalf. And this needs to be a separate surveyor to you. So you appoint a surveyor on their behalf, and then the process, they'll request a schedule of condition. You can't actually force a schedule of condition, you can just request it. And if there's none coming forward, they'll get on with it. Draft a party wall of order between them, and so the works can continue. Now, neighbours can't frustrate the process by not replying. So the 10.4 process is designed so the process carries on. And they can't frustrate the works by refusing to reply to the notice so that nothing happens and they think they can stop the neighbours' works. That's not the case. The two joint functions of the Party Wall Act are to help building owners build and protect adjoining owners, protect their property. They're trying to balance the needs of both the neighbours. Okay, so we had a great audience question last week, and it's really interesting. And I've come across this question a number of times, so I'm going to go through it with slides. I did try and answer it. It's always slightly better to answer it with slides, so I'm going to re-answer that question. So the question was, when do you use a Section 6.1 notice and when do you use a Section 6.2 notice? Okay, just a little reminder on Section 6.1. It is on one of the videos, but let me go through it again. Section 6.1 applies, and it's a dual test. First of all, where you're excavating within 3 meters of your neighbor's foundation, measured horizontally and notice the any part, and where you're going to go to a lower horizontal depth. And again, I say it's any part, so if it's a little, if the building swerves out a little bit and it's just the 3 meter bit that catches it there, they're still notifiable. So remember, that's any part. Got a little visual for you here. So 2-part test. Both of these need to be met within 3 meters and lower than lower horizontal level. So if you imagine these are the foundations, and I've deliberately done a little projection on the wall, because often when you're measuring it really close and you're just within that 3 meters, you need to allow for the projection. So it's from this distance to this distance. If it's within 3 meters and it's to a lower horizontal depth, so that foundation, this excavation will be lower than that foundation. That's both the tests met. So that's 6.1. Going on to Section 6.2. This is a super complicated one. So this is where adjoining owners are measured. This is a 6 meter test. And that's where it forms a 45-degree line from the bottom of your foundation. So let's have a look at this. It's the best way to deal with it is an illustration. So it's up to 6 meters, and that's where the bottom of their foundation, when you project the depth of your excavation, that's going to form a 45-degree line. So a lot of people get confused and say, where do we use 6.1 and where do we use 6.2? Okay. This isn't how Section 6.1 works, but this is the way to think about it in a shortcut manner. So 6.1 should be used where you're within 3 meters. you're digging with it, if your excavation is less than 3 meters, use 6.1, so therefore owners within 3 meters are notifiable. The 6.1 applies where your excavation is 3 meters, because there's no 45. If it's less than 3 meters, you still have to notify all the owners within 3 meters. So that's where that understanding of section 6.1 is important. Now, where you're excavating more than 3 meters, so that distance needs to be more than 3 meters. This excavation is more than 3 meters. You need to work out who are the owners within that distance. So if this was 4.5 meters, we'd have to work out who are the owners within 4.5 meters. So that's the section 6.2. So don't forget, it's a 45-degree formation. So you could get the scenario where you're doing 4.5 meters. There's an owner that's 6 meters, just under 6 meters away. I don't think they're notifiable, because although they're within 6 meters, it doesn't form a 45-degree angle. Now, obviously, you're guessing as to how far their foundations are, but given that if you're only doing 4.5 meters from the ground level, they're going to have some foundations, they're not going to be notifiable. Third part of this thing, this section 6.2 rule comes in, where you're excavating greater than 6 meters, so you get pilings going 7.2, 10 meters, etc. You don't actually need to take account of the owners further than 6 meters. It's just adjoining owners further than 6 meters. It's just adjoining owners within 6 meters. So hopefully that deals with the number of permutations and combinations. There's an interesting question last week. I thought I'd deal with it. Got a question that's just popped in. I'm going to have a look at this one. Let's have a look at this question here. Dil, thank you for answering the question again. You're doing a fantastic job. I'd extension, we have signed a notice, sent wish they answer where, but address is wrong. Sent another notice with the correct address, no response. Sent third surveyor notice, no reply, signed notice. Neighbour is not responding. If they do not respond, what are the next steps? Okay, so quick question from one of our regular viewers. So they sent a notice, and they had the wrong address on. Okay, so they sent back. Okay, yeah, got another question to do actually. So they sent a notice, had the wrong address on, but the adjoining owner replied and dissented, and they wish to use their own surveyor, but the address is wrong. So they resent a notice. They've had no reply. Now, there's two ways you can go about it. You can either restart the process. The better process to do is probably send a notice to the surveyor and say, look, we've got the wrong address on. Here's the notice. Can you get yourself reappointed? And I'm assuming that when they say the wrong details, I mean they had the wrong name. If it's to the wrong address, then what you're actually doing is starting the process for that address, not for the previous address. So if you're starting it for a new address, you're restarting the process. You need to go through the entire process, i.e. go back on, serve the notice, do a 10-4 reminder letter, and appoint a surveyor on their behalf. So a non-reply, again, doesn't mean you can go back. However, if the address was right, you've got some detail wrong, you should go back and get in touch with the surveyor that was appointed originally. A little bit of a complex question, but I'll go through it again. Okay. Had a question earlier saying it is about access. So where you serve a section 1 notice, you have rights to gain access to the neighbouring owner's land. Actually, scaffolding rights, both without. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this question in that I had on LinkedIn with this one that's come in. Serve a section 1 notice. for building on the line of junction. I've gone through it before. Have look at one of the videos. So line of junction entitles the building owner to erect scaffolding on the neighbouring owner's land. For them to do that, they need to serve a Section 8 notice. Section 8 gives the adjoining owner 14 days and the adjoining occupiers 14 days notice. So once they serve a 14 days notice, they can erect scaffolding, but scaffolding is only there for notifiable works. So you could get the scenario whereby, for example, if this building was on the line of junction, it would be to excavate, build that wall, but that's it. They can't keep the scaffolding there to erect this roof, so they can't keep it forever. It's only notifiable works, and in this scenario, it would be excavation and building a wall on the line of junction. The roof is not notifiable. Quite important to understand that. There was a further LinkedIn question where, what happens if the adjoining owners don't give you access? So if you've got adjoining owners there, they're not giving you access. It's a legal right for building owners to get access. And if they don't do it, you can serve them a Section 16 notice. I've had this scenario go on. Theoretically, you can take them to court. And the barrister has actually said to me, he doesn't believe Section 16 has ever been used. But if you call the police and you can get them to understand it, I don't think it's ever actually happened. They'll say go to court. So if you could go to court, you could say they're not granting us access under Section 16. They could get a £1,000 fine and a criminal record. So the penalties are really severe. The other way to achieve that, and I believe is probably a slightly better way, is to get an injunction. Now, injunction can compel someone to do something. Sorry, injunctions stop people doing something. They can also compel someone to do something. And I've been told that an injunction can compel someone to give access to the land as well. So that's probably a better route to do that. Hopefully that's a really intriguing question. You're looking at Section 1, Section 6, and Section 16 of the Act. So that's where you've got neighbour not giving you access. It's not a great place to be in. I think there's another question here. That's the LinkedIn question on Section 8. So just to reiterate, in case it's not clear, if you issue the Section 1, after that, where you want access to an adjoining owner's land, you need to issue a Section 8 notice, giving them 14 days. And don't forget, service of notice is 2 days after posting. If they don't do it, you should inform them that they can go to court under Section 16. If you go to court or not depends on your project, obviously. Now, where you've got commercial buildings and you're building a 2-story or a 3-story building here, they're obviously going to have some heavyweight solicitors to be involved. Okay. Can you shed some light on the use of scaffolding on neighbours' land, both with or without Section 1, and what is a scaffolding licence? So, under the Party Wall Act, any works that are in pursuance of the Act have rights to go on adjoining owners' land, have access rights on adjoining owners' land. So, for example, just to reiterate, if this wall was on the line of junction, it's not on this diagram, but let's assume, you have rights to put scaffolding to build that wall. Usually you can get away with building up to about 3 meters overhand. It doesn't look very nice. But when you're going further, health and safety can ask for scaffolding to be erected so you're working safely. The Party Wall Act is one of those laws that, because it's trying to help building owners, gives you rights to go on the adjoining owner's land to put scaffolding up. Where it's not in pursuance of the Act, you then have to have a scaffolding license. Now, a scaffolding license is, because you're using their airspace, in this scenario, this is actually their airspace or their land. This is their land, it could be their airspace. You need to gain a scaffolding license because it's their property. Now, scaffolding license rules are very different to Party Wall Act in that it's up to the adjoining owners to grant you license. They don't have to. They don't have to give you access, and they can specify a sum that they want for you to do that. So it's an agreement between the owners, and that can only be done if the adjoining owners are agreeable. Got another question maybe. And so the scaffolding license is one of these negotiation ones. The Party Wall Act actually gives you rights to get access. You don't have to pay for that access. There's another piece of law called Rights to Neighbouring Land Act, which allows you to repair stuff, but not build new stuff. So that's a different law. We're not going to touch upon that now. But Section 1 only applies to more building on the line of junction rather than rights to access. Or have I misunderstood? What happens if it's the building owners? Okay. All right, so clarification. Section 1 applies more to building on the line of junction than rights of access, correct? So Section 1 only applies when you're building on the line of junction. Part of the Section 1 process is that it gives you rights. It actually comes under Section 8, gives you rights of access to neighbouring owners' land where works are in pursuance of the Act. So if you're building on the line of junction, that's a notice under Party Wall Act. You have rights of access. Where you're set back any distance, now here there's a slight setting back if you look very carefully. Section 1 line of junction doesn't apply, rights of access doesn't apply. The neighbours do not have to give you right of access on their land. So if you're setting back, and this says 500 mil, so 500 mil is a lot of gap, you can actually probably put up scaffolding on your land for 500 mil and have a working distance. That's too much of a gap. Basically, no, you don't have rights on their land. None of the Party Wall Act applies apart from the excavation. You've got to put it in your own land. You should be able to put some sort of scaffolding. 500 is not ideal. You want really 600, but yes, you can get away with it, work on 500. So if you've got 500 mil, it doesn't apply. You can't force access on the adjoining owner's land. It's got to be negotiated, and they have the right to say no. Dil, you always mention building adjoining owner can consent with a schedule of condition, but the adjoining owner can consent without a schedule of condition, true or not? Yes, technically adjoining owners can consent without a schedule of condition. It's always advisable to have a schedule of condition, and there you're protecting the building owner more than the adjoining owner. So yes, you can have a consent without a schedule of condition, but it's advisable to have a schedule of condition. So some great questions today. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. We've run out of time. If you'd like more information, this is quite a good booklet, actually. It's not a bad one, but there's a lot of stuff that's left out. And we've created one to augment it. There's a detailed guide to serving notices with a follow-up procedure and draft notices in there. The ones in the government guide are quite confusing. People will get those wrong. For the basic projects, we've tried to simplify them. So use them in conjunction with each other. They're quite good. They work really well together. One of our sponsors is Wren Kitchens. Sanjay couldn't be here with us today, but that's his details, so please contact him. And one of our regular sponsors is on the line. So I'm going to see if I can handle the technology, promote them, and see if we can bring them on and get some words of wisdom from Ranjit. So manage part of the process. Ranjit, are you there? Have I got you on screen, sir? Hello, Ranjit. Looks like he's enjoying the session so much. He's gone and looked up something on the act. So Ranjit was with us. I think he's possibly been delayed or had to move away somewhere. So I'll just do a fill in. I'll do my impression of Ranjit. Ranjit's a great promoter, and no property meeting is complete without him. They publish a great magazine called Property Investor News. I subscribe to it myself. These are some of the old editions, so you'll get those free. You'll also get this great book free before the hammer falls, written by a couple of great guys, Piotr Rusnik and Jay Howard. Really good book. It's definitely worth subscribing to this magazine, and they very kindly sponsor us each week. Unfortunately, Ranjit's not here. If you subscribe to the magazine, send Ranjit an email. They'll send you a free book and part 3 editions free. So it's a great little magazine. Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for the great questions. Please keep them coming in. Send me your emails. Send them on LinkedIn or in person next week. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Thank you very much.